The cake was still uncut on the lace-draped table, its tears gleaming under the string lights like a monument to our fragile dreams. When you turned to me in the quiet alcove of the barn and said, "Kai, this was a mistake. I have to go." Your voice cracked like thunder rolling in from the Hudson Valley hills. And in that split second, the world I'd built around us for 10 years splintered into shards that cut deeper than any vow could heal. Guests laughed obliviously in the distance, clinking glasses to our happily ever after. While I chased your shadow through the dew-kissed fields, my rented tuxedo snagging on wild rose bushes, screaming your name into the gathering dusk. Theo, don't leave me here alone. I collapsed onto the gravel path, the wildflowers we'd planted ourselves now mocking me with their defiant bloom. And that's when the nausea hit. Not from the champagne, but from the void you'd carved out of my chest. Our wedding was supposed to be the pinnacle. That sun-drenched September afternoon in upstate New York, with the Catskills rising like ancient guardians behind the old red barn. We'd poured everything into it. Savings drained for the wildflower meadow. The folk band crooning Indigo Girls covers. Mason jars of local cider glowing amber in the fading light. My sister Lena had flown in from Seattle, her eyes already misty as she adjusted my boutonniere of white dahlias. Your brother Marcus, the stoic Marine from Philly, clapped you on the back earlier, muttering, "Proud of you, man. Finally settling down." And there you were, Theodore Hale, my brilliant, brooding architect, looking like you'd stepped out of one of your own blueprints. Tall frame in a slim charcoal tux, those piercing blue eyes locking onto mine during the ceremony with a promise that felt eternal. We'd met in the chaos of Brooklyn 9 years ago, both of us wide-eyed transplants chasing the American dream, or whatever fractured version we could afford on entry-level salaries. I was a barista-slash-aspiring novelist in a cramped Williamsburg walk-up, scribbling half-formed stories about lost boys on coffee-stained napkins. You were fresh out of Yale's architecture program, interning at a firm in Midtown, sketching skyscrapers that pierced the smog like defiant fingers to the gods. Our paths crossed at a queer open mic night in Bushwick, where I read a raw poem about loving in the margins. And you, nursing a whiskey need in the back, approached me afterward with that crooked smile. "That was honest," you'd said, your southern drawl, remnant of your Atlanta upbringing, softening the edges of your words, like blueprints for a heart no one's built yet. From there, it snowballed. Late-night ramen in my apartment, your head on my lap as we binge-watched old Fred Astaire films, dreaming of a life beyond the grind. You taught me to see the poetry in structures, the way a suspension bridge sagged under invisible weight, much like love. I dragged you to poetry slams in the village, where we'd hold hands under the table, ignoring the sideways glances from straights who pretended not to notice. We moved in together after 2 years, pooling our pennies for a one-bedroom in Greenpoint with harbor views and creaky floors that echoed our laughter. Fights came, sure, your workaholic tendencies clashing with my freelance droughts, the ghost of your conservative family hovering like fog off the East River. But we always reconciled in the tangle of sheets, whispering apologies into each other's skin, vowing to build something unbreakable. The idea of a family crept in slowly, like ivy claiming a brick wall. After your firm's big Tribeca project landed you a promotion, we started talking kids. Not hypotheticals anymore, but real plans. Surrogacy seemed the only path for two guys like us, navigating the patchwork of U.S. laws that still treated queer families like footnotes. We scraped together the funds, found Emily, a warm-hearted teacher from Ohio, single mom to a teenage daughter, who believed in second chances. Her eggs, your sperm. We'd raise the child as ours, no questions. The IVF cycles were brutal, your stress levels spiking as you juggled deadlines, my insomnia from rewriting query letters to indifferent agents. But when the call came, positive, viable, we wept on the kitchen floor, surrounded by takeout containers and your half-finished elevation drawings. That should have been our anchor. Instead, it became the fault line. In the months leading to the wedding, you grew distant, your sketches turning abstract and jagged, like they were bleeding frustration onto the page. You'd stare out at the Manhattan skyline from our fire escape, chain-smoking despite my pleas, muttering about not being enough. I chalked it up to cold feet, the weight of forever pressing on a man who'd spent his youth running from his preacher father's sermons on Sodom and Gomorrah. I planned distractions. A surprise weekend in the Berkshires, where we hiked leaf-strewn trails and made love under a quilt of stars, your body fitting against mine like it was designed that way. We're in this, I'd murmur, tracing the scar on your collarbone from a childhood fall. You and me, Theo, building our legacy. But legacies crumble. On the wedding day as the officiant, a drag queen friend from our early days named Ruby Royale pronounced us husbands. Your grip on my hand tightened like a vice, then released as if burned. The reception blurred into joy. Lena toasting our unbreakable bond. Marcus loosening his tie and pulling you into a rare hug. We cut the cake. Lemon chiffon with blackberry filling, your favorite. Feeding each other bites amid cheers, your laughter ringing true for a fleeting moment. Then, as the band struck up at last, you pulled me aside into that alcove, the scent of hay and honeysuckle thick in the air. I can't, you'd said again, eyes glassy, not from booze but something darker. Kai, this life, the suffocating me, the firm, the expectations, the kid on the way, it's all too much. I love you, God. I do, but I need to breathe. Betrayal hit like a gut punch. Was this about us? Or the shadows you'd never fully shaken? Your family had boycotted, of course. Your mother sending a curt email about praying for your soul. But we'd armored ourselves against that. Or so I thought. You didn't wait for my pleas. You just grabbed your keys from the valet and drove off in the rented Mustang. Taillights fading into the twilight like a bad dream. I didn't chase far. The guests found me eventually, Lena wrapping me in her shawl as I retched into the bushes. He'll come back, she lied, her voice steady for my sake. But he didn't. Calls went to voicemail, texts unread. A week later, your resignation email hit the firm, vague about personal reasons. And rumors swirled. Theo Hale, the rising star, ghosting New York for parts unknown. I sold the tuxedo online, boxed up your clothes in our Greenpoint flat, and stared at the ultrasound photos on the fridge. Emily's growing belly a ticking clock I couldn't stop. Months blurred into a haze of prenatal visits and pitying glances from our circle. The surrogate contract held. Emily, bless her, stuck by me, texting updates from her cozy Columbus home. I threw myself into writing. A memoir, raw and unfiltered, about loving a man who built empires but couldn't construct his own peace. Agents passed, but a small indie press in Portland bit, offering a modest advance that barely covered formula. When Elias arrived, named for the prophet who wandered the wilderness, a nod to your biblical roots. He was perfect. Tufts of dark hair like yours, eyes the color of storm-tossed Atlantic, a cry that pierced straight to my marrow. Raising him alone in that drafty apartment felt like defiance, a quiet revolution against the ache you left. Mornings started at dawn with his gurgles. Evenings ended with me rocking him to Coltrane jazz, whispering stories of a father who designed castles in the sky. Lena visited often, her partner packing Elias's chubby cheeks with anti-smooches. Our friends, queer chosen family from brunches in Park Slope to pride floats on Fifth, rallied, organizing meal trains and playdates. But the hole you carved? It echoed in the empty side of the bed, in the blueprints scattered like fallen leaves on your drafting table, which I couldn't bear to clear. 2 years passed in that rhythm. Elias's first steps across the warped floorboards, his laughter bubbling like the harbor outside our window. I published the book, Fractured Foundations, to quiet acclaim. Readings in dimly lit Brooklyn basements where audiences nodded knowingly at lines about love's load-bearing walls. Royalties trickled in, enough for a deposit on a co-op in Bed-Stuy, where brownstones whispered histories of resilience. Elias thrived, curious, building block towers that rivaled your models, asking for Dada Theo in the innocent way toddlers do, before I gently steered him to tales of the architect who flew away. I thought I'd armored myself, convinced the scar tissue had toughened, until the email arrived on a drizzly October morning. 3 years to the day since you vanished. Subject: I'm coming home. We need to talk. No apology, no explanation, just coordinates for a coffee shop in Soho, the kind of place we'd haunt in our courting days, with exposed brick and overpriced lattes. My hands shook as I deleted it, then fished it from the trash folder, heart hammering like a jackhammer on pavement. Elias toddled in then, clutching a wooden train, oblivious. Papa play? He beamed, and I scooped him up, burying my face in his curls to hide the tremor. Could I face you? The man who'd vowed eternity then bolted like a felon? Part of me, the writer, the survivor, yearned for closure, for the climax my narrative lacked. Another part, the father, recoiled at the risk to our fragile peace. But curiosity, that old Brooklyn siren, won. I arranged for Lena to watch Elias, packed a notebook for notes or nerves, and boarded the F train downtown, the subway's rumble mirroring the quake in my gut. The cafe was unchanged. Chalkboard menus scrawled with seasonal specials. The hiss of the espresso machine a familiar underscore. You were there, in the corner booth, older but achingly you. Hair silvered at the temples, jaw shadowed with stubble, dressed in a wool overcoat that screamed reinvention. Your eyes met mine across the room, and for a heartbeat, we were 25 again. Sparks in a city of steel and secrets. Then reality crashed. You stood, awkward, murmuring my name like a prayer. Kai, you said, voice rough as aged bourbon. Thank you for coming. I don't deserve it. We ordered black coffee for you, chamomile for my churning stomach, and the words tumbled out in fits. You'd fled to Portland, crashing on a cousin's couch, bartending in dive bars while chasing freelance gigs. The distance was supposed to clarify, but it only amplified the guilt, the what-ifs gnawing like termites in joists. Your firm had blackballed you subtly, projects drying up, until a small outfit in Seattle took a chance on your portfolio. There, you'd rebuilt. Sober now, therapy twice weekly, designing eco-homes for queer co-ops that echoed our old dreams. But the pullback east never faded, the unfinished business, the love you torched. Why now? I asked, pen scratching furious shorthand, voice steady despite the storm inside. 3 years, Theo. Elias is 3. You missed his everything. Your face crumpled, hands fisting around your mug. Elias? The baby. Our baby? Kai, I thought, after I left with the contract I assumed you'd. You trailed off, horror dawning. He's mine? God. I've been such a fool. The betrayal reignited, hot and fresh. You'd assumed we'd terminate? Or that I'd walk away from the child we'd planned together. I leaned in, voice low and lethal. He's ours, but I've raised him alone. Every fever, every milestone, you weren't there. And now you waltz back expecting what? Absolution. You reached across the table, then thought better, hand dropping like lead. I don't expect anything. I need to make it right. If you'll let me. We talked for hours, the cafe emptying around us, rain pattering against the windows like impatient fingers. You confessed the fear that had driven you. Not just family ghosts, but a diagnosis. Bipolar, unmanaged, spiraling under wedding stress and impending fatherhood. The manic highs had painted our future in technicolor lies. The crash left you convinced you were poison. I left to save you, you said, eyes pleading. From me. I wanted to hate you, to hurl my mug and storm out into the downpour. But beneath the rage embers glowed. The boy who'd sketched our first apartment from memory. The man who'd held me through my mother's funeral 2 years in. Forgiveness isn't a switch. It's scaffolding, built plank by plank. One step, I finally said, throat tight. Meet Elias. See if you can handle the man he's becoming without running. Your nod was solemn, a vow remade. We parted with numbers exchanged, tentative plans for Prospect Park that weekend. On the train home, I watched the tunnels flash by, Elias's photo on my lock screen a talisman. Hope flickered, dangerous as a pilot light, but I couldn't douse it. Not yet. The days leading to Saturday were a tightrope. Elias sensing my distraction, demanding extra stories about flying daddies. I prepped him gently. A friend of Papa's is coming to play. While Lena hovered, her warnings sharp as Brooklyn bagels. Don't let him bulldoze you, Kai. You've built this life without him. She was right. Our bed-stewy brownstone, with its sunlit breakfast nook and Elias's mural of stick-figure families, was our fortress. But cracks spiderwebbed when you texted, "Can't wait," bringing his favorite blueprints of a treehouse. Park day dawned crisp, leaves carpeting the paths in gold and crimson, joggers weaving like threads in a loom. Elias clutched my hand, his tiny backpack stuffed with trucks and snacks, chattering about ducks on the lake. You arrived early, pacing near the carousel, a rolled tube under your arm, face alight with nerves that mirrored mine. When you spotted us, your step faltered. eyes locking on Elias like he'd hung the moon. "Hey, little builder," you said, crouching to his level, voice pitched soft. "No, son. No claims, just an offering of a wooden puzzle from your coat pocket." Elias eyed you warily, then snatched it, giggling as pieces clicked. We walked the loops, you matching his toddler pace, pointing out arches in the bridges, explaining load-bearing whimsy in simple wonders. "See how the trees hold up the sky. That's you, kiddo, strong roots." He warmed slowly, a shared apple slice, then clambering onto your shoulders for a duck-feeding frenzy. I hung back, notebook forgotten in my bag, watching this ghost of a family take shape. Laughter bubbled, yours, deep and rusty, his pure as spring rain. For a moment the betrayal blurred, replaced by possibility. But as the sun dipped, Elias yawned, rubbing his eyes, and reality resurfaced. "Papa, is he staying?" he asked, pointing at you. Your silence stretched, heavy as the gathering clouds. Mine too. We benched by the fountain, Elias dozing against my chest, while you unrolled the blueprint. A treehouse in our backyard fantasy, complete with rope bridge and stargazing loft. "For him," you said, if there's room." The question hung, unspoken. Was there? The conflicts we'd buried, your volatility, my guarded heart, loomed like storm fronts. Yet in that park, with acorns crunching underfoot and the city's hum a distant lullaby, I saw the humanistic thread. Redemption isn't erasure, but addition. Walls rebuilt, stronger for the scars. "Start small," I replied, tracing the lines you'd drawn. "Picnics. Story time. No promise, theo. But maybe, a foundation." You nodded, tears brimming, and for the first time in years your hand found mine. Not possessive, but tentative, like testing fresh concrete. As we rose to leave, Elias stirred, mumbling treehouse, dada fly, and your breath hitched. The walk home blurred, subway transfers, his head lolling on your shoulder during the wait. At our stoop, you lingered, blueprint tucked away. "Thank you, Kai, for this chance." Inside, Elias tucked in with dreams of swings and skies. I poured a nightcap and stared at the city lights, pulse of the skyline syncing with my own. Betrayal's sting lingered, a low ache, but atop it bloomed something romantic, resilient. Love as architecture, flawed but standing. You hadn't returned whole, but perhaps together we could redesign. What followed was a courtship reborn, cautious as a site survey. You showed up weekly, Saturdays in the park morphing to Sundays at our kitchen table, where you'd arrive with market-fresh bagels and decaf, sketching while Elias helped with crayons. Therapy reports shared over coffee, your sponsor's number programmed into my phone for late-night checks. I tested boundaries. A reading for my second book in a packed Nuyorican Poets Cafe, where you sat front row, eyes never leaving mine as I read passages that flayed our history bare. Applause thundered. But your quiet, "That was beautiful," your beautiful afterward meant more. Elias bonded fiercely, his drawings now featuring 2 daddies and a bridge to the moon. Yet conflicts simmered. Your late nights at the revived firm clashing with my deadlines. Old insecurities flaring when a text from an ex-colleague lit your screen. One night, after a school play where Elias played a wobbly tree, you pulled me aside in the lobby, voice urgent. "Kai, I'm all in. But I need to know. Do you trust me not to break us again?" The question cracked me open. Trust? It was rebar in concrete, woven slow. "I'm trying," I admitted, the crowd's chatter fading. "But if you run, Theo, it's not just me you leave this time. It's him. Our boy." Your embrace then was fierce. Apologies breathed into my hair. We drove home through rain-swept avenues, wipers slashing like accusations. But by the time we pulled up, hands intertwined over the gearshift, the storm felt navigable. Winter deepened, holidays a gauntlet of chosen rituals. Hanukkah lax with Lena's crew, a quiet Christmas Eve tree trimming where you hung an ornament, a tiny blueprint of our wedding barn, salvaged from your Portland stash. Elias's all lit the room, but the ray all spark was you, reading the Polar Express by firelight, voice steady where it once wavered. As snow blanketed Bed Stewie, we stole moments. Slow dances in the living room to Ella Fitzgerald, your lips brushing my temple in promises unspoken. Spring brought the thaw, literally and otherwise. Your firm greenlit the treehouse project. Not fantasy, but real, permits filed for our narrow backyard. We broke ground on a sunny April Fool's. Elias in pint-sized overalls wielding a plastic shovel, dirt smudging his grin. Neighbors gathered. Miss Rosa from next door with her empanadas, the lesbian couple upstairs with craft beers. Cheering as you laid the foundation, sweat beading on your brow, my novel's epigraph echoing in my mind. Love, the load we choose to carry. But climax brewed in shadows. A call from your mother shattered a lazy June barbecue. She'd seen your LinkedIn update, the photo of us three at Coney Island, and demanded a reckoning. Come home, Theodore. This abomination, it's killing your father. Her voice, shrill through speakerphone, froze us mid-bite. You hung up, face ashen, and vanished into the night, leaving half-eaten ribs and Elias's puzzled, where did I go? Panic clawed me. I searched bars first, our old haunts in the East Village, then your office empty save for blueprints fluttering like flags of surrender. Dawn found me on the Brooklyn Bridge, wind whipping my coat, screaming your name into the chasm below, cars honking like accusatory horns. Betrayal's echo. Not abandonment this time, but relapse. Hours later, a text. Portland. Needed space. Don't follow. The void swallowed me. Elias's questions. Dada sick. Twisted the knife, his trust in you a mirror to my own shattered faith. I armored up. Therapy for me. Playgroups for him. Chapters poured out in fury. Summer scorched on, the half-built treehouse a skeletal reminder in the yard. Weeds claiming the footings. Fall's chill mirrored my resolve when you returned unannounced. 2 months later, gaunt and contrite, knocking with a suitcase and that same rolled blueprint. I lasted 3 weeks. You confessed on the stoop, rain mingling with tears. Therapy, AA meetings, but the pull. You two are my North Star. I faced her, told Mom I'm done running. For us. Suspicion warred with longing. Prove it. I challenged, door half open. You did. Moving into Lena's spare room, weekly check-ins with a family counselor, designing the treehouse completion as penance, nights hammering under floodlights, Elias supervising with flashlight in hand. By Thanksgiving, walls rose, roof rafters framing stars. We dined with our patchwork family, your hand under the table squeezing mine. A silent oath, romance rekindled in embers. Stolen kisses amid sawdust, your body curling against mine on the couch during movie nights, tender and unhurried. The treehouse debuted on Elias's 4th birthday, a wonder of reclaimed wood and skylights, rope swings swaying like a pendulum of grace. He climbed in whoops of joy, you and I watching from below, fingers laced. We did it, you whispered, voice thick. Built something true. In that moment, under a canopy of autumn leaves, the drama crested. Not in shatter, but suture. Betrayal scars mapped our skin, but love, humanistic and hard-won, bridged the gaps. No fairy tale perfection. America doesn't peddle those. Just 2 men, a boy with your eyes, and a structure sturdy against storms. We'd weather more, life's blueprints demand revisions. But together, we'd stand. As dusk fell, Elias called from the loft. Papa Kai. Da teo. Come see the moon. We climbed, hand in hand, the city a constellation below. And in the quiet magic of that perch, I forgave. Not forgetting, but forward. For him, for us, for the legacy we'd finally, fiercely claimed.